Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're dissecting an absolutely incredible and honestly super relatable story by a singer-songwriter named Joe Kowan. We're going to unpack his personal battle with severe stage fright, but more importantly, we're going to explore exactly how he beat it. And spoiler alert, he didn't do it by fighting his panic, but by completely hacking it. If you've ever felt your knees literally knock together, your hands shake, or your throat completely close up before speaking or performing in public, you are definitely going to want to pay close attention to this one. Okay, let's dive into this. Why does your body act like you're facing down a hungry tiger the second you step onto a stage? It's a fascinating question, right? I mean, we've all been there, standing in front of a crowd, feeling completely overwhelmed by a physical overreaction that makes absolutely zero logical sense. To figure out this biological mystery, we really have to look at Joe's personal journey. For the longest time, Joe's fear kept him incredibly isolated. Up until he was 27 years old, he was writing songs, sure, but he would only ever play them for himself. Just knowing his roommates were in the same house was enough to make him nervous. But, a few years roll by, and that itch to share his music and his stories just grew too strong. It actually started to overpower the terror. So, right around the week of his 30th birthday, he decided enough was enough. He marched down to a local open mic night to finally conquer his fear head on. But here is the harsh, biological reality of what happened next. About 10 minutes before Joe's turn to perform, his sympathetic nervous system just hijacked him. This is your body's primal survival mechanism kicking in. When this happens, adrenaline spikes, your heart rate goes through the roof, and your breathing gets really shallow. And amazingly, non-essential functions literally shut down. Digesting your dinner? Nope, gone. Blood flow to your extremities? Rerouted. For Joe, this meant his mouth went completely dry and his fingers basically refused to work. His pupils dilated and his muscles contracted, giving him these weird, hyper-alert spidey senses. Which, let's be real, is definitely not the relaxed flow state you want to be in when you're just trying to play some acoustic folk music. And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate evolutionary joke, doesn't it? Our nervous system is so ridiculously primal that it reacts the exact same way to a deadly predator, like a literal saber-toothed tiger, as it does to a tiny cafe crowd of maybe 20 visibly annoyed folk singers on a random Tuesday night. Millennia of human evolution, and your brain still literally cannot tell the difference between being eaten alive and being judged for hitting a wrong chord. It's crazy. So Joe gets up there, he opens his mouth to sing his very first verse, and experiences exactly what he described as a terrible, whole-body tremor, not a nice opera vibrato, but a nightmare. His entire body was just violently shaking from fear. His voice was quivering uncontrollably, he was absolutely mortified, and the audience? Well, they were physically uncomfortable for him. They were entirely focused on his intense nervousness. Honestly, it was a completely agonizing, absolute nightmare of a first performance. Despite the nightmare, Joe was determined. He promised himself he would return every single week to cure this stage fright once and for all. He vowed to return. He forced himself to perform through the terror, but he hit a wall. He faced a brutal reality. He experienced zero improvement. Week after agonizing week, instead of getting better, instead of feeling more relaxed or building confidence, the paralyzing fear just repeated itself on an endless loop. He just couldn't shake it. So the crucial point is, after weeks of this self-inflicted torture, Joe had a massive epiphany. He realized, wait, I can't fight my biology. Instead of fighting the stage fright, he needed to make it a core, authentic part of his performance. He realized, in his own words, all I had to do was write a song that exploits my nervousness. Because think about it, the more terrified he got, the better and more authentic that specific song would be. He went straight home and wrote exactly that. He dubbed it his stage fright song, and right from the very first lines, he immediately acknowledged his physical symptoms and the sheer awkwardness in the room. He sang rhythmically, "I'm not kidding, this stage fright is real, and if I'm up here shaking and singing, well, you'll know how I feel." It's incredibly clever. By putting it straight into the lyrics, he grabbed the giant, terrifying elephant in the room and put a massive spotlight right on its face. Then, he goes even further to disarm the crowd. Listen to this genius lyric. "The shaking caused by my whole body trembling, while you sit there feeling embarrassed for me, well, you don't have to." By actually singing this out loud, Joe gave the audience permission to let out a collective sigh of relief. They didn't have to feel that secondhand embarrassment for him anymore. They could just experience it with him. It united everyone in that cafe into one big, nervous, slightly uncomfortable family. And he completely leaned into all of his physical symptoms, literally making fun of his own physiological panic. He already knew his intense nerves made him sing about half a step higher than normal, right? So he wrote that into the joke too. Delivering a beautiful, self-deprecating punchline, he's saying, "I'll probably just stand here and start to sing, and my vocal cords will vibrate at speeds just above sound." It is just such a hilarious, disarming way to completely own the exact thing that used to terrify him. Now, what Joe did here isn't just good songwriting, it is actually a textbook example of a brilliant psychological technique called cognitive reframing. This means taking the exact thing that was actively blocking your progress and flipping it into something absolutely essential for your success. Joe stopped viewing his stage fright as an insurmountable brick wall. By fully accepting his problem and making it the literal subject of his art, he used cognitive reframing to turn his biggest, most debilitating weakness into his ultimate superpower on stage. This song essentially became his secret weapon. It acted as a massive pressure valve. By singing it first at every open mic, he allowed all that pent-up anxiety to just release, allowing the rest of his performance to flow with ease. He could get through that massive initial wave of sympathetic nervous system panic, build a real bond with the audience, and then comfortably play the rest of his set. And honestly, the best part? Eventually, he reached a point where he rarely ever needed to play the stage fright song at all. He had successfully rewired his brain's response to the spotlight. Joe's story is just an absolute masterclass in embracing our flaws rather than running away from them. Which brings us to a final thought for you to chew on today. What fear is currently holding you back? And more importantly, instead of trying to fight it, suppress it, or sweep it under the rug, how can you reframe it, own it, and turn it into your absolute greatest strength? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, I challenge you to go out and find your own stage fright song this week.